First of Black Ops, you see it. Let's get it. Log4j, Apache, running amok. I like my little fire icon. So let's get into it. It's all over the net. Everybody's struggling for it. Everybody's gonna struggle with this probably for a while. Let's go ahead and make a little quick slide. So let's get it. CISA warns critical information, so stay vigilant on the ongoing threats. Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, is a government agency in charge of cyber upgrade and cyber hygiene. Warn critical infrastructure organization today to strengthen their cybersecurity defenses against potential and ongoing threats. Federal agency also issued guidance to help executives and senior leadership proactively reinforce their org resilience against threats arising from malicious activities and coordinated by nation state sponsors, threat actors, and their proxies. Right. So since Log4j is in a ton of products, and we're going to go over quite a few more products they're in, they're embedded. And a lot of people don't even know it's embedded in their organization. So background of Log4j. The vulnerability track is CVE 2021 44.228, referred to as Log4Shell, affects Java-based application that uses Log4j version 2.0 through 2.4.1. Is a Java-based logging library that is widely used in business system development, including various open source libraries directly embedded in major software applications. The scope of the impact expanded thousands of products, devices, Apache products such as Stretch2, Solar, Drew, Flink, Swift, and many others. Because this vulnerability is in a Java library, the cross-platform nature of Java means the vulnerability is exploitable on many platforms, including Windows, Mac, and Linux. As many Java-based applications leverage Log4j2 directly or indirectly, organizations should contact application vendors or ensure their Java applications are running the latest updated version. Right, so once again, it's embedding in apps. It's hard to find. Hopefully, you have scanners that help you locate that information or that Java package in all your applications, servers, and even desktops. Issue guidance to help executives and senior leadership once again with the nation states. So once again, it's prevalent. To understand the prevalence of this vulnerability, let's look at some numbers. According to Oracle, that bought Java from Sun years ago, there are 12 million Java developers worldwide. 15 billion devices run Java. Apache Log4j is one of the most common used logging libraries in the world, so the exact percentages of Java application using it is unknown. Needless to say, the full scope of the risks of every company individual endpoints is to be determined. We know it's huge. Once again, CISA Apache Log4j. That's them scanning for it in Notebook. The Log4j exploit could be installing ransomware. Yesterday, Bitdefender reported that they found the first ransomware family being installed directly via the Log4j program exploit. So once again, Log4j is on there. Once you exploit it, they get privileges or root privileges to actually install it anywhere in their app. The exploit downloads a Java class. There it is. That's the IP address. This is loaded and executed by Log4j application. Once loaded, it would be downloaded to the .NET binary from the same server with the ransomware. They call it Coronasphere. So once again, Log4j running amok. They take over remote machine. Next thing you know, you're getting a ransomware request, right? Because they're gonna start encrypting all your machine servers and how they get in. Once again, through Log4j. As expected, nation states hackers all kinds of had jumped at the opportunity to exploit the recently disclosed CVE, which is 2021-44228. This is the Apache Log4j based library. Also known as Log4Shell or Logjam, the vulnerability is used by threat actors linked to governments in China, Iran, North Korea, and Turkey, as well as access brokers used by ransomware gang. All the hackers are switching to let's attack Log4j because it's active and easy to attack. Among the first threat actors to leverage Log4j to drop a payload are cryptocurrency mining groups, botnets who start attacking immediately. Right. When it's known what in the dark web what's available, people start using it. Attacking it available. So the normal Log4j scenario at the top, you're working on your app, you get an HTTP correct TP request. It's a get index, Log4j logs the request, puts it in a log file, right? You're done. Then you go back to your normal operations, right? So that's what it usually is. So now the exportation attack comes in. They send a malicious HTTP request that JNDI is a service along with the attack server. They can take it over. It sends an HTTP request to the attacker revealing sensitive data. Boom, they got you. So that's the flow at the bottom, right? So that's where a lot of hacking groups, nation states, and even script kiddies are getting on that. There's so many attack scripts on the web now how to take advantage of it. Once again, in Log4j JNDI, you do a get. The attacker comes in. If the WAF doesn't block them, you get on a vulnerable server. You get to Log4j vulnerable implementation. Then you get on the ldap server with the JNDI ldap with the evil request on it. And then it sends back the malicious impact. And then once again, they drop ransomware payload on your machine, take over your machine, encrypt it, or just start exfiltrating data. All right, so here's another one talking about the cloud. You can come in either one way of these texts with your web app, get your cloud server back in, and we'll get to it. AWS was actually patching all their stuff and making sure they don't get hit. So you get on your logging code infrastructure. Once again, you have the Log4j vulnerable Java app. You do your JNDI exploit string. You get the payload, bring it back down to the server. Boom, you're taking over the server. Right? The latest patch you can apply to address the latest patch. Microsoft recommends customer apply the security update to remediate the vulnerability. Apache Log4j CVE, which is 4428 and now 45046. That's the Apache Log4j vulnerability server. So if you're a Java 8 or newer, update to Log4j to 2.16, or if you're in Java 7, update to Log4j 2.12 when it becomes available. Systems that already updated 2015 should have plans to move to 2016 as possible for the extra protection against denial of service attack. The denial of service attack was the 45046, right? There's two ways to take advantage of Log4j vulnerabilities. Here's a workaround too to help mitigate the risks of that in the Log4j2x. Until more complete security upgrade can be found, customers should consider the mitigation steps in the workaround. In case the Log4j vulnerable components cannot be updated, the Log4j 210 or 214, you can put a parameter in. The parameter is Log4j 2.format no messages set to be true, meaning they're actually cutting the Log4j package off, right? So it's not actually activating. And default format message no good equals true. An alternative to that is log.j format message no lookups. Once again, it's true. Set it as an environment variable to force it to change. As a Kubernetes administrator, you can set Kubernetes set environment to set the log4 message not looked up. So that's part of your Kubernetes infrastructure. If you're running a Linux part of that, you probably have log4j in there. And once again, you need to set that message up in your in all your pods and containers automatically, right? So Kubernetes, once again, is vulnerable too. Some of the packages are in. I just did a highlight a few of these. Adobe, Amazon, Atlassian, Broadcom, Cisco, Citrix, cPanel, Debian, Docker. Once again, we just saw Kubernetes in there, so we know that both of the containers are vulnerable. So once again, we know it's widespread and is out there. So since I've been going hard with AWS, let's see what AWS has got in store to mitigate that. So using AWS security service to protect against detect and respond to the Log4j vulnerability. We're going to talk about the AWS WAF network firewall. Amazon Inspector, Guard Duty, Security Hub, and of course AWS Patch Manager. Right, they would all be in play, and once again, it's a layered approach. So let's look at each one of these products and what they bring to the table. The AWS WAF, customers can use the AWS Web Application Firewall, which uses the managed rules, which will help protect Amazon CloudFront, Amazon API Gateway, the load balancer, and the App Sync. In the AWS WAF, you want to set AWS managed rules, known by input rule set to Log4j RC rule, which helps inspect the request for the presence of the Log4j vulnerability. Right there, it's usually using the JNDI ldap. So that's what it's looking on there to go back and pull stuff down. Also, the AWS rules anonymous IP list. The anonymous IP list rule will help inspect IP addresses or sources known to anonymize the client information. So a lot of these sites are going through the same IPs. So of course, Amazon figured out they're blocking those IPs. AWS rules, common rule set, especially the restrict the size of body rule to verify the request body is at most 8 kilobytes. If you go out and get those malware and ransomware packages, they're usually big, so you want to cut that down. For customers using the WAF Classic, you need to migrate up to the new one. Customers who have multiple accounts can follow these instructions to use AWS firewalls to deploy the AWS rules essentially across their organization. Right, so that was a web application firewall. So they just talked about the AWS network firewall. Customers use Citrix, IDS, and IPS rules for the AWS network firewall to deploy network-based detection and protection. Right. Open source Citrix rules addresses the Log4j available from the ET Labs and from CrowdStrike. These rules can help identify scanning as well post exploitation of Log4j vulnerability. Because there is a large amount of benign scanning happening now, we recommend customers focus on the potential post-exploitation activities and such as outbound LDAP traffic from the VPC to those untrusted internet destinations, right? And that's what those are, files and patterns. So the network firewall rule knows what to catch or block. They also recommend customers consider implementing outbound port rules and enforcement of those rules to monitor and prevent instances of protocol like LDAP using a non-standard LDAP port such as 5080, 123, and 443, monitoring and prevent usage of port 1389 outbound by particularly helping to identify the systems that have been triggered by the internet scanners to make common and control outbounds. We also recommend that systems without legitimate business needs to initiate network calls out of the internet not be given the ability to do that by default. Outbound network traffic filtering and monitoring is not only very helpful with Log4j, but other classes are vulnerable too. So long story short, especially in the firewall, if you don't have an LDAP, you should just block the LDAP call altogether. And two is you should only be making certain LDAP calls into 138, 139. You should know what the LDAP calls is coming into your organization, or especially going out when they're making those calls. If nobody should be making out LDAP calls going out of your system, block all that traffic, right? And that's what you mean by making your attack surface smaller. Amazon Inspector. The Amazon Inspector team has created coverage identifying the essence of the vulnerability from EC2 and the container registration. With the new Amazon Inspector, scanning is automated and continual. Continuous scanning is driven by events such as new software packages, new instances, and new common vulnerabilities and exposure. For example, one of the Inspector teams added support for the Log4j vulnerability, both the 4428 and the denial of service 45046. Inspectors immediately began looking for the vulnerability for all supported AWS system managers managed instances where Log4j was installed. So that shows you on the right, it's looking for the Log4j package inside there. Let's look for the findings. Once again, Amazon Inspector is going through once again, like we're scanning for that package to see if it can find it, right? Once again, Amazon Guard Duty. In addition to finding the presence of the vulnerability through Inspector, Amazon Guard Duty team also has begun adding indicators with compromise associated with exploiting the Log4j vulnerability. We will continue to do so. Guard Duty will monitor for attempt to reach known bad IP addresses or DNS entries. You can also find post-exploits activity through anomaly-based behavior finding. For example, if an Amazon EC2 instance starts communicating with an unusual port, Guard Duty would detect this and create a finding behavior network port unusual. This activity is not limited to network port unusual. Finding out Guard Duty has a number of different findings associated with post-exploits activity that might have been seen in response to a compromised AWS resource. So remember, AWS is taking all their customers, tracking it, reaching out to the big boys, Mandiant, CloudStrike, all those big companies, and getting that information and putting it in their products, right? Because they're trying to create you a virtual SOC, right? Another one is security hubs. Many customers today use security hub with Inspector and Guard Duty to aggregate alerts and enable automatic remediation and response. In the short term, we recommend that you use security hub to set up alerting through your AWS chat box or AWS simple notification service, which is email, right? Or a ticketing system for visibility when Inspector finds a vulnerability in your environment. In the long term, we recommend you use Security Hub to enable automatic remediation and response for security alerts when appropriate. Once again, AWS has all the tools and all the features, right? One of the AWS Patch Manager. If you use AWS System Patch Manager, you have a critical patches set to install immediately in your patch baseline. Your EC2 instance will already have the patch. It's important to note that you're not done at this point. Next, you will need to update the class paths where the library is used in your application code to ensure you're using the most up-to-date version. Once identified, ECR container images will need to be updated to use the Log4j version 2.16. Downstream, you will need to ensure that any container built with the vulnerable ECR images are updated to use the new image as soon as possible. This can vary depending on the services you're using and deploying, right? So once again, that's the patch manager right there. It shows critical. Of course, they're looking at their Amazon Linux too. And once again, it can patch it. Probably what we would, a big company would do is automatically patch their dev and test environments, test it, hopefully run their automatic testing scripts to go through their whole program. If there wasn't any problems, then you would just roll the patch downstream until you got it in production. Right? So that's kind of what we need to work on is your pipeline and how you're testing your pipelines in there. Right? Once again, AWS security service that enable customers to adopt a later approach to help protect against, detect, and respond to the risks from the Log4j vulnerability. We urge customers to continue to monitor AWS security bulletins. We will continue to update our bulletins with remediation efforts for our side, which is the AWS side of the shared responsibility. Given the criticality of this vulnerability, we urge customers to pay close attention to the vulnerability and appropriate prioritization of implementing those controls. And that's it. Once again, it's out there. It's a monster. That's what keeps security people employed, to be honest. But that's going to test your SOC, your security team, um, your pipeline, and how easily can you patch. The hard part is a lot of people still do a lot of manual testing. So are you comfortable doing agile? Get those patches out there, get those tested, run those automated tests. And once again, I just decided to do it. I wanted to focus too a lot on the AWS layered approach. And so once again, Professor Black Ops, cybersecurity for the people. Please subscribe. And also, if you have any questions, just comment on the video and we chop it up about it. I'm sure I'll talk about it again.